The tumble continues. Wall Street has its worst day since the 1987 crash. Investors deem governments and central banks' anti-virus measures as too little and possibly too late, sending stocks into a tailspin. Also on the program, the coronavirus nightmare for the global aviation industry gets worse as the United States bars travelers from most EU nations from entering the country. And what's more expensive than gold? Palladium is seeing a boom market, and we will let you know why. I'm Chris Kober. Welcome to the program. It was the worst day on Wall Street in more than 3 decades. Stocks plunged again on Thursday, triggering a stop in trading for the second time this week. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell by 10%. The sell-off coming amid growing uncertainty over global measures to contain the economic damage of the coronavirus pandemic. So far, emergency measures by central banks failed to douse mounting recession fears due to the outbreak. Losses were worsened by reactions to a travel ban to the United States for most European citizens. We'll cross over to our Wall Street correspondent in a moment, but first, Brussels has hit back at Washington's travel ban. EU officials say it came without any consolation. Now, US President Trump says there was no time for talk. It's already causing airline problems, as Norwegian Air, the largest foreign carrier serving the New York region, says it's scrapping another 4,000 flights and temporarily laying off up to half of its employees.
The global aviation industry has been shaken up dramatically by the coronavirus outbreak. Empty planes, travel bans and forced flight cancellations have become the new normal. That has already made things difficult for airlines. On Wednesday night, a fresh blow.
To keep new cases from entering our shores, we will be suspending all travel from Europe to the United States for the next 30 days. The new rules will go into effect Friday at midnight.
The ban has several exceptions. It does not apply to US citizens, permanent residents or immediate relatives of citizens. Ireland and the UK are also exempt, as are other countries outside the European Schengen passport-free travel area. And, although Donald Trump suggested otherwise, the White House has clarified that cargo flights will not be affected. Nonetheless, the move will have a huge impact on European and US airlines that regularly cross the Atlantic Ocean. Nearly 40 airlines operate around 560 passenger flights daily in both directions. That equates to nearly 17,000 flights and 4.8 million seats in a 30-day period. Among the European airlines most affected will be Lufthansa, Air France and KLM. US airlines such as Delta and United will also suffer. Last week, the International Air Transport Association said the global industry could lose over $100 billion as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Given what has happened since, that now seems like a very conservative estimate.
All right, now let's bring in José Luis de Haro in New York. José Luis, the U.S. president is attempting to send a strong message here. Why are U.S. investors reacting so negatively to it?
Confusion, Chris. President Trump's delivery on Wednesday night created more questions than answers initially. Not only did he not give any heads up to European allies, but he also did not make clear if European products would be included. He later clarified that via tweet, saying measures will not affect trade or goods, only people, but the damage was already done. Also, he did not offer up major new ideas on that fiscal stimulus that is still in the waiting.
José Luis, another day of steep losses for U.S. markets, the worst day since 1987 for the Dow. Put that into perspective for us.
Exactly. The worst percentage drop for the Dow Jones since October of 1987, which supports the idea that the economy might be heading into a recession. Headlines like this, Chris, or that we experienced the quickest drop over 20% from record highs ever, take a toll both on investors and consumer confidence. And consumer confidence specifically is very delicate. If consumers like myself end up thinking, hey, we are heading into a recession or we're going to lose our jobs, even if that ends up up not happening when the situation recovers, that does not mean we will immediately go and buy and spend right after. And that will hit the economy even harder and make a bad situation even worse.
So if investors aren't buying President Trump's travel ban, how about other measures to prop up the economy in this time of crisis from the Fed, for example?
Well, as for now, the latest news coming from Capitol Hill is that legislators from both sides of the aisle are close to a fiscal deal, but not there yet. So the clock is ticking on that regard. And at a time that even if the Federal Reserve announced massive additional injections of liquidity to the system to make sure there is enough money for lending among banks in the short term, the markets have made very clear, Chris, that with this Thursday sell-off, that monetary policy is not the answer to stop the virus from spreading or get the situation under control.
José Luis de Aro, reporting from Wall Street. José Luis, thank you. So another gruesome day for U.S. stocks. Earlier, the picture wasn't much prettier on European exchanges. Many eyes were on Christine Lagarde. The president of the European Central Bank called the coronavirus pandemic a great shock to the world economy and announced stimulus measures by the ECB. But it wasn't what many had hoped for.
Markets had been expecting a rate cut, but that's not what they got from the Eurozone. Instead, there was a warning from the new ECB chief that the pandemic was a major shock to the economy. This requires a coordinated response from finance chiefs and governments to mitigate the impact.
In particular, an ambitious and coordinated fiscal policy response is required to support businesses and workers at risk.
Despite not cutting rates, the central bank chief did announce new stimulus. These included measures to support bank lending and expand its programme of buying corporate bonds. Investors had expected a slight cut in the ECB's already negative interest rate on banks' deposits as a way to stimulate the Eurozone economy. The deposit rate was already at a record low of -0.5%. Her words did not ease jittery nerves on the markets. The Paris and Frankfurt stock exchanges fell more than 10% in afternoon trading after the announcement, while Spain's IBEX and other European bourses also tumbled.
Let's talk about a rare commodity now, palladium. It's used in catalytic converters in cars, and automakers need it desperately to meet tighter emission standards, which is one reason for the recent surge in palladium prices. The other is a massive undersupply, as Russia, the world's biggest palladium producer, is strictly controlling quantities, making the already rare metal twice as expensive as gold.
A catalytic converter contains up to 45 grams of palladium, which makes this scrap here extremely valuable. German company Edelcut recycles the precious metal. Just one of these exhausts can sell for up to €2,900 for the palladium alone. Entrepreneur Christos Röser has never seen prices like this. These precious metals are used in the e-mobility sector for electric batteries. People are speculating on there being a growing demand, and that's driving the prices sky high. South Africa is the second biggest producer of palladium after Russia. This mine is about 2.5 hours' drive from Johannesburg. Palladium is extracted here as a byproduct of platinum mining. Demand is rising. The precious metal is vital for the systems that clean exhaust emissions in hybrid and gasoline cars. And manufacturers are under pressure to comply with increasingly strict emission standards.
So the automotive industry uses about 9 million ounces of palladium per year versus 3 million ounces of platinum. I don't think that it's speculation that's driving this surge in prices. I believe it's supply and demand fundamentals.
Here in Germany, behind this steel door and 1 metre thick concrete walls, rare earth and precious metals are stored. Investors are hoping to cash in on the high demand for palladium. These small 100-gram ingots cost around €9,000 each. There's limited availability of this raw material. And there's a growing number of applications for it too. That gives people confidence that the value will remain stable and that it could quite well go up. In Görlitz, on the Polish border, palladium is even keeping the police busy. Special investigators are looking for thieves who've so far stolen more than 80 catalytic exhaust converters from parked cars. 5 arrests have been made so far. We assume there's a market for them in Eastern Europe. They probably burn or melt out the precious metals and put them back into production. Extracting palladium from catalytic converters requires know-how, as well as centrifuges and other lab technology. But at the current prices, it's clearly worth the effort.
Twice as expensive as gold. Who would have known? That's our show. I'm Chris Coburn in Berlin. From me and the entire team, thanks for watching and have yourself a successful day.